What's up everybody, it's Andrew Cuts here. I'm going to be breaking down this fade for you here in a second. I'm going to be using the Gamma boosted clipper. I just got these at the time of this video, so this is my first time using them. And then the trimmer and the shaver are going to be the Babyliss FX3 series. So to start this fade, I'm going to take my clipper and close that lever up all the way. And I'm just going to set in my initial bald guideline, slightly above my ear. So now that our initial bald guideline is set in place, we're going to open that lever up all the way, and we're just going to go up about a finger's width right above that initial guideline. So now we're basically going to do the same thing again. This time we're just going to throw on that number 1 guard. Once again, that lever is all the way open, and we're going up about another finger's width. So now we're going to throw the number 2 guard on. Once again, that lever is going to be all the way open, and I'm just going to be going straight up, trying to fade the sides into the top of my hair. And a good thing to keep in mind when you're doing this step is you just want to envision your head as a box. Think of a box as a flat edge. So when you're going straight up with that clipper, you want to just try to keep it as straight and flat as possible. You don't want to dig into the curvature of your head. You want to ride that side of your head, and then as soon as it starts to curve, just continue to ride it straight up. Now here I have my Babyliss FX3 trimmer. And basically what I'm going to be doing is balding out the very bottom of the fade. As you can see, I'm going up with my trimmer, but I'm not going all the way up to that guideline that's above it. I'm stopping just short of it. And you'll see a closer view of that in just a second. So as you can see here, I'm pointing out that guideline that's directly above. Now as we remove this hair, you want to notice I'm not going all the way up to that guideline, and if I get anywhere close to it, I'm only using the corners of that trimmer. And the whole idea behind this step is you want to remove all that bulk below that guideline, but you don't want to create a new guideline. So that's why I'm going very lightly with my corners. If I do create myself a line, I just take it out with the corner right then and there. Now we have our Babyliss FX3 shaver, and what we're going to be doing with this is balding out the very bottom of the fade, similar to what we did in the previous step, except the shaver is going to get it skin tight, whereas the trimmer gets it only to stubble. So with the shaver, you're going to be going up just like we did with our trimmer, except this time we're even going to go a little bit lower. And you want to notice as I go up, I'm going to be flicking out. So you want to make note of where and how high you went with your trimmer, and then with this shaver here, you're just going to go a little bit below that point, making sure to flick out. And if you do create any tiny little lines, you can usually erase them by just tapping downward. So now we're going to begin attacking that bottom line that I just pointed out. We're going to have no guard on, and the lever is going to be 1 notch open, and we're just going to begin flicking at that bottom line. You don't have to erase it during this step. This is just going to kind of knock it up a little bit, and you want to notice I'm not going up too high. I'm just tapping it up the slightest bit in our section, and then in a second we're going to open that lever up another notch or two and try to fade it out the rest of the way. So there it is, opened it up another notch. And once again, we're just going to be tapping that line up a little bit higher until eventually we fade it out all the way. So as you can see, that line was almost faded out, but just to make sure, we're going to open that lever up 1 more notch and fade it out even more. Now I'm opening that notch up one more, and that's going to put the clipper at all the way open, which we already did when we set this guideline in, but I would like to go over it one more time to make sure everything is neat and even. So at this point, this section is just about faded, but as you can see there, I'm pointing out there are still some tiny imperfections, especially at the bottom of the section. So what I'm going to do to address that is I'm going to go in, do some detail work with my clipper, and I'm only going to be using the corners of the blade. That way we can get super detailed and not take too much hair off. So now we're going to begin working on this next section by knocking out that line that I just pointed out. To do this, we're going to slap on our 0 guard. This also could be called the half guard depending on what brand of clipper you have. But either way, I'm going to start with that lever all the way open using the 0 or half guard. And we're just going to begin tapping at that line. You want to notice this step is not completely removing that line, but it is softening it up for us, making it easier to deal with as we continue on. So now we're going to close that lever up about 2 notches, so now the clipper should be halfway. And now we're just going to continue tapping at that line, softening it up even more. As you can see, once again, it's not completely removing that line, but it is making it a little less noticeable. Something to keep in mind when you're fading out any line is you always want to start below the line and flick up to it. You want to notice I'm not starting at the line, I'm not starting above the line. With every stroke I'm doing, I'm starting below the line and flicking up towards that line. And that's just going to help you fade these lines out way easier, and it's going to prevent you from taking a big chip out of a section of your hair that you don't want to. Now, as you can see, that line in that section is pretty much faded out, but just to fade it out the rest of the way, we're going to close that lever all the way up, still using our number 0 guard or half guard, depending on what brand you have, and we're just working that line out the rest of the way. I am mostly using my corners, but if I do use the full blade, I'm being very light-handed and just working that line out the rest of the way. Here I'm just detailing my section, once again just using the corners, and I'm going to play with that lever as needed to work out any dark spots or lines I see. So now we're on to our next section. We're going to work out that line that I just pointed out. If you remember, we set that section in with the 2 guard open. So to remove that line, we're going to throw on our 1.5 guard, and we're going to start with the lever open, and we're just going to soften that line up. Now we're going to close that lever up halfway, and we're going to soften that line up even more. sticking with that 1.5 guard, we're just going to close that lever all the way now. And we're just going to mostly lead with the corners of our blade, and we're just going to blend that line out the rest of the way. So now I'm throwing on my number 3 guard. This isn't really a necessary step, but it's just kind of an extra step to kind of clean things up even more. If you remember earlier on in the process here, we went in with our number 2 open and we went straight up our head to try to blend the sides in with the top of our hair. And that worked pretty well for me, but I felt like it could have been blended a little bit better. So that's why I slapped on the number 3 guard, and I'm basically just doing the same thing I did with the number 2 guard open. Once again, just going straight up my head, and I'm looking at myself head on in the mirror to see what areas have hair, sticking out, what's hanging over the side of my head, and then I'm just going in with that 3 guard, and I'm just clipping all those hairs until it blends nicely the way I like it. So now sticking with that 3 guard, I'm just closing the lever up, and I'm basically doing the same thing. I'm just stopping a little bit short of where I went up with the 3 open. So now I'm just going to be doing some detail work. Like I said before, whenever you're doing detail work, you only want to use the corners of the blade. That way you're not taking off too much hair. And another thing to keep in mind with detail work is you always want to start with a higher guard or higher lever position than whatever you think it is. So if I thought the line that I saw needed to be taken out with the 1 closed, I would start with the 1 open to see if that did the trick first. That way you're not going in and taking off too much hair with too short of a guard. So yeah, just always start higher and work your way shorter as opposed to doing the opposite. And now I'm just detailing that lower section, and this time I have no guard on. I think the lever's closed, but to my point earlier, I'd want to start with the lever open and see if that does the trick, and then work my way down from there. You want to just take your time when you're doing detail work and make sure you have a very light hand. So now we're just going to start fading our beard out, starting with the lever all the way open with no guard on. We're going to go down about a finger's width, and then we're going to close that lever up and just tap at the top of that section. Now we're going to throw the number 1 guard on, same thing, go down about a finger's width, then we're going to close the guard up and flick out at the top of that section. Now we're going to do the same thing, this time with our 1.5 guard. We're going to go down about a finger's width, and then we're going to close that lever up and just flick out the top of that section. Now finally, to blend in the top of the beard with the more bulkier part of the beard, we're just going to flip that clipper around and go with the grain, and just going to be flicking right into the bulk. This works great if you have a thicker beard. You can kind of freehand and use a higher guard if necessary to just go with the grain until you have a nice blend. So now I'm just combing through my beard, really just setting everything into place so I can see what stragglers need to be cut. And now I'm taking my trimmer and I'm just going to do like a freehand trim of anything that is out of place of the shape that I want. And then right now I'm going to start hitting the bottom of my beard. I usually like to go about 2 fingers width below my jawline, and that seems to be a pretty good spot for me where it's not too high and it's not too low, because you don't want to take your beard line too high or it looks like a chin strap. You also don't want to take it too low because it sometimes can look goofy that way. So yeah, 2 fingers width works for me under the jawline, but really whatever works for you guys, find that and then just make that line. Now I'm just lining up my edges. This is really going to bring the fade together. When I'm lining up my edges, I really just like to try to keep it as natural as possible. That vertical line, I usually try to imagine a line that goes straight down to about the edge of my eyebrow. I don't like to take it too much further than that, or it can look like it got pushed back. But really, yeah, just keep it as natural and as sharp as possible. And remember, you can always go back further, but once you cut that hair, there's no going back. So just really take your time with this. So now I'm taking my trimmer and just doing some final detail work with the fade. The bottom line of the fade is usually something that people struggle with the most, especially when you're new to fading. So using the trimmer, especially the corner of the blade of the trimmer, is a really great tip when trying to blend out that bottom line. Now I'm just lining up that beard. You want to notice as I'm using the straight razor, I'm pulling my skin away from the direction I'm cutting with the straight razor in. There I'm just putting on the finishing touches with the beard, and this is pretty much the final cut. So let me know what you guys thought down in the comments. I hope you were able to learn something from the video. Let me know if you guys have any questions, and I'll see you in the next one.